Chitta Shuddhi, purity of mind. To obtain liberation, it is not that easy. It is hard because for a long time we have cultivated thoughts from wrong premise and therefore have uncountable, unwholesome thoughts in our minds. What is mind? It is a bundle of thoughts. Anyway, we have wrong ideas about God, about us, and the world, and we have built a great building on that erroneous belief for a long time. So, to realize God, the first task is to make our minds pure with the right thoughts. The understanding of the truth of the Tattvatraya and changing our current thoughts to align with the truths itself will purify our thoughts to a great extent. Purity of mind is essential for whatever paths one may follow. Without purity of mind, one cannot succeed in one's spiritual endeavor, irrespective of the path, as it has been said that all spiritual endeavor as we perform is to realize our true identity and realize God, and obtain non-dual oneness with Him. It has been said previously that to realize God, the first task is to make one's thoughts pure. To make one's thoughts pure, one's thoughts should spring up from the right premise. So, first, one should understand correctly what is right premise and what is the wrong premise. Whatever thoughts one thinks, if the root is, I am the body, such thoughts are from the wrong premise. If the root is, I am conscious being and not the body, and whatever thoughts come from the understanding of the truth is the right premise. The usual talk of people is, it is not easy to know one's true identity. It is hard. That is not right. It is hard because one has cultivated thoughts for a long time from the wrong premise and cherishes those thoughts. People do not want to shift one's cherished premise of I am the body notion because one's long cherished habits. Most of us do not even know that the foundation of our thoughts is from wrong premise. We do not think much of it because everyone around us thinks in the same way as we do. In short, we have wrong ideas about us, and we have built a great building on that erroneous belief. This impedes our spiritual progress. The wrong ideas are impure thoughts, and it should be clean. So, the first thing a practitioner should attend is the purification of mind. Purity of mind will help one to control one's mind. In fact, all the sadhanas are done only to get pure mind. The impurities should be washed off by the sadhanas. Delusion is veiling the wisdom. Sri Krishna says in chapter 3, verse 40, our senses, mind, and intellect are veiling our wisdom due to delusion. In truth, our body and mind are our adjuncts. They are not we. We are conscious beings, souls. In chapter 16, verse 21, Sri Krishna says, lust, anger, and stinginess are pathways to hell. Good deeds are the pathways to Swarga, and bad deeds are pathways to Naraka. But when the good experiences experienced in Swarga, due to good karmas, are exhausted, one has to return to the earth with a new body, and will be happening until one gets fully qualified to enter the heaven. After entering heaven, the realm of God, there will be no more birth. Therefore, purification of mind is very important. Controlling the senses will help one obtain purity of mind, which we will study subsequently. Of course, devotion to God should be there in all the sadhanas for it to fructify. Devotion is like lubricating oil. It will help to master one's mind and destroy delusion. If one asks why the delusion should be destroyed, it is because delusion is the destroyer of true knowledge and realization. It is the destroyer of wisdom. So, first one should control one's senses, says Krishna in chapter 3, verse 41. I have already mentioned that to realize one's true identity is not that easy because for a long time we have cultivated thoughts from wrong premise and therefore have tons of unwholesome thought bundles in our minds. So, first we should understand that we have wrong ideas about us and we have built a great building on that erroneous belief. Erroneous thoughts are impure thoughts. So, for self-realization or to realize God, the first task that we have to undergo is to make our minds pure with the right thoughts. In chapter 7, verse 3, Sri Krishna says, "Among thousands and billions of people who live in this world, only a few will strive for liberation. And among those few, maybe one will succeed in realizing the goal. So it is not easy to obtain self-realization without first obtaining pure mind." Swami Ramaji says that understanding of the truth according to teachings itself will purify one's thoughts to a great extent. Anyway, the purity of mind is essential for whatever spiritual path one may follow. Without it, one cannot succeed in one's spiritual endeavor, irrespective of the path. Purity of mind also helps greatly to live one's life in the world of integrity, which is the base for successful life. We all have mind, but how is it? That is the question. For example, after a bath, the body will look good, nice, and we will feel fresh and energetic. Similarly, if we think of a nice and good thing, we feel happy and maybe even feel like dancing out of joy. So the same mind can make a person go higher and also make the same person go down. If one's mind is pure, one will feel rejuvenated. There is only one mind, but it can be classified into two, pure thoughts and impure thoughts. To put it differently, the mind has two types of thoughts, wholesome thoughts and unwholesome thoughts. Everyone's mind is the mixture of these two types of thoughts. Only the percentage will differ. The Amrita Bindu Upanishad says, "The mind has pure thoughts and impure thoughts. Desirous thoughts are impure and undesirous thoughts are pure." It further says, "Mind is the cause for both bondage and liberation." So purity of mind is necessary for a practitioner to realize one's sadhana. Whatever path one may follow, Chitta Shuddhi is the first requirement for God realization. In one way of speaking, we do not have problem with nature. Nature is the creation of God, and it works perfectly. Then where is the problem? The problem is only in our mind. So only in our mind needs perfecting. For example, purifying, and it is in our hand, though it is hard to purify. Purifying mind is different from accumulating knowledge. For example, information. Without purity of mind, one cannot succeed in one's spiritual endeavor, irrespective of path. The secret is the right understanding of the truth self will purify one's thoughts greatly, says the Swami. Sri Krishna says that God resides in the heart of everybody and their inner ruler and the controller, or Antaryami. So we understand that God resides in everyone's hearts. But there is a saying that God will reside in the pure heart. What does it mean? The truth that God resides in everyone's heart makes one understand that we are inseparably connected with God. Then how to make meaning of the statement that God will only reside in the pure heart when God is in everyone's heart? One should understand that God will shine and reveal himself only through pure hearts. So pure heart is necessary for one to realize God. One can see the reflection of the sun only when the pond is clear. Similarly, God can only be known only when the heart is pure. Purity of mind is very important even to live a healthy life. It will give enthusiasm and positive attitude towards life. Many diseases, both physical and mental, come because of mental impurities and unwholesome thoughts. In the outer level, hate, jealousy, greediness, and so on are unwholesome thoughts, and compassion, understanding, wishing others well, so on are wholesome thoughts. But in deeper level, the unwholesome thoughts are to understand oneself as the physical body, and to go by the qualities of the physical body and mental thoughts as one's qualities. We think the qualities of the person are just our qualities. Just opposite to this are wholesome tendencies. Krishna mentions it as Loka Sangraha, thoughts, in several places in the Gita. In chapter 3, verse 20, Sri Krishna talks of King Janaka and the example for this. So a healthy mind is that mind which has goodwill for the world welfare. The hierarchy is this. We should first cultivate wholesome thoughts to win the unwholesome thoughts and finally go above it. In the ultimate sense, purity of mind means to be without both unwholesome and wholesome thoughts. For example, mind without thoughts. It is called pure mind, and the way to it is through wholesome thoughts. Purity of mind is a stage in sadhana. It is the penultimate stage in sadhana. The ultimate sadhana is Atma-Anatma discrimination. Purity of mind is like the airport. Atma anatma discrimination is takeoff, and the sky is the realization where the earthly afflictions cannot touch, says Swami Ramaji. The same tonic, if you take it after your meal, will give you strength, and if you take it before your meal, will reduce your strength. Similarly, the same mind will go down desirous wish or thoughts, and then implied meaning is deluded selfish thoughts. The same mind will rise with undesirous thoughts, and the implied meaning is thoughts of world welfare. So, unselfish thoughts, goodwill for others, loving concern regarding all creatures will make one's mind pure. Only when the body is healthy, one can perform well. Similarly, only when the mind is healthy, one can do sadhana well. For the mind to be healthy, sense control is a must. So let us study about sense control next. The point to be understood and cherished. Purity of mind is essential requisite for spiritual practice. True knowing of all that is known will help to achieve it. The topic, Chitta Shuddhi, is completed. The next topic is Indriya Nigraham. Sense control, Indriya Nigraham. The starting point of serious spiritual life is senses control. If one wants to be a spiritual practitioner, the first sadhana to start with is sense controlling. The sense controlling sadhana is very hard. Krishna says in chapter 6, verse 36, it is very hard to restrain our senses, but it is very important to spiritual sadhana, the aim of which is Atma Jnana. One cannot achieve anything without controlling one's senses, let alone Yoga Siddhi. Only a self-controlled man can achieve yoga. Nowadays, yoga is a very popular word among people all over the world. To many people, yoga means exercise or stretching poses and is mainly practiced for physical health. But the word yoga that Sri Krishna used in the Gita has deeper meaning. First, let us see the literal meaning of the word yoga. The literal meaning of the word yoga is to yoke or join, as in a yoke used to harness oxen. That suggests an estrangement between two entities that need to be joined. In fact, the word religion also has the meaning to join. Here, the two entities are God and the soul, not the body, and now they are, as it were, estranged. They need to be joined. Scriptural teachings are meant to show us how to join God. So to join ourselves to God through physical and mental discipline is yoga. But the controlling should be done by right means. By any cost, senses must be controlled, but by right means. In chapter 6, verse 35, Sri Krishna says that yoga only can be attained by controlled mind. Yoga only can be attained by unattached mind. Repeated practice and renunciation will help to control it. In chapter 6, verse 7, Sri Krishna says the man who has controlled his senses will have equanimity of mind. This shows that all spiritual sadhanas are interconnected with each other in one way or another, and they will lead to the same self-realization. But the spiritual sadhana starts with sense control towards the sense objects. A personality is consisted of the 5 organs of actions, 5 organs of senses, and inner instruments that consist of 4 divisions. The divisions of inner instruments are all only thoughts with different functioning. Mind, its nature is to waver. Intellect, it has the capacity to discriminate. Memory, its nature is to remember. Ego, its nature is in every activity, gross and subtle. All of them are modifications of inner instrument, or generally called mind. Here we are concerned about the senses of knowledge, that is, eyes, seeing, ear, hearing, nose, smelling, tongue, tasting, and the skin, sensing, of touch. These 5 should be kept under control by spiritual practitioners. Excessive desire for all these 5 sense objects will not only ruin one's spiritual progress, but also ruin one's life. In chapter 7, verse 23, Sri Krishna says, people whose intellect is not awakened to the truth, the knowledge they acquired will be very small, and they worship demigods and go to the demigods. But my devotees come to me. So by those words, we understand that there are so many varieties of spiritual practitioners in different stages in sadhana. When the mind is not matured, it will wander here and there. When the mind gets matured, it will choose Ishvara, the one God, who has created everything, including our bodies. In the second chapter, Sri Krishna says, a sadhaka should see the duality of pain and pleasure with equal mind. To get that state of mind, the sadhaka should perceive the unreality of duality. How is the duality unreal? It is because they come and go. Pain comes and goes. Good times comes and goes. Illness comes and goes. Childhood comes and goes. Youthhood comes and goes. Winter comes and goes. All the living beings come to the world and eventually exit from the world, never to be seen again. Whatever comes and goes is not really real. This is one of the definitions of unreality. The real is always there. Only such a person who sees unreality of the duality is fit to obtain immortality. The point of my talking about the duality is, to get such a taste of mental exploits, the senses must be controlled first. That is why senses control is very important. Those who cannot control their senses are unfit for yoga, says Krishna. He also says the one who keeps his sense under control will be steady. The one who has control over the senses will be calm and will be steadfast in the self. Therefore, in chapter 3, verse 41, Sri Krishna says, one should first master the senses. Senses go uncontrolled due to desires. Buddha said, desire is the root cause of all suffering. The enemy to spiritual progress is desire. Enemy to spiritual life comes in the form of worldly desires. Desire prevents one to go higher, subtler state of consciousness. Swami Ramaji says the desire sprouts because we have diluted knowledge and knowing. We have diluted cognition. The diluted cognition obstructs the spiritual progress. So first the delusion in the cognition should be removed, annihilated by true knowing. The true knowing of what all we know will wash off all sins of one's thoughts and actions. Delusion destroys the wisdom and delays the realization of the self. True knowing of the objects will help us control our senses. Moreover, he says that people do not even know that they have diluted cognition. Delusion is the covert enemy, and senses are overt enemy of spiritual progress. The known enemy is easy to handle than the hidden enemy. So sadhakas should first understand the truth about one's life that consists of God, individual, and individual's body, ego, and life, and work on the control over the senses to get good results in their spiritual endeavor. All the spiritual sadhanas will be easy to observe when one has sense control, plus devotion to God. It has been already said that devotion to God is like lubricating oil to all the spiritual endeavors. So let us study next about devotion. Nowadays, the word devotion has been used in a loose way, like devotion to work, devotion to institution, and so on. Swami Ramaji, devotion means devotion to God, the point to be understood and cherished. Sense controlling is the starting point of spiritual life. Here is where the sadhaka should start one's spiritual journey. The topic sense control is completed. The next topic is Ishvara Bhakti.
Bhakti, devotion. Sri Krishna says in chapter 18, verse 65, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mamevaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Fix your mind on me. Become my devotee. Bow to me. Surrender to me. Then you will come to me. If one asks why should we worship Krishna, Krishna himself gives the answer in chapter 7, verse 14. Mameva ye prapadyante mayam yetam taranti te. One should worship Ishvara because only Ishvara can release one from the clutches of Maya. Krishna does not distinguish himself from Ishvara and Brahman. Generally, Acharya is necessary to overcome Maya to establish in one's self. One cannot overcome Maya by one's own effort. But there are exceptions to this, like Ramana Bhagavan, my revered Guru, Swami Remaji, and such people. One may ask, who said that one may attain mukti without a guru? The reply is Sri Krishna himself in the Bhagavatam 11:7-19 up to 23 slokas tells Uddhava starting like this. Atmano gururatmaiva purushasya visheshataha. In this world, those who are engaged in investigating the true nature of this world often lift themselves up by their own effort and rid themselves of the craving for the pleasures of sense. Their inner self raises them to the highest. Let us ask a question about bhakti. What does it pertain? The answer is soul. Bhakti is the desire of the soul for God, that is, to know and unite with God. Bhakti is the innate quality of the soul, or rather, by bhakti, the innate quality of the soul is released. What is the effect of bhakti? To make earthbound desires flow Godward and heavenward is the effect of bhakti. To make the desires which are now flowing towards the creatures flow towards the Creator is bhakti. The starting point of classical Ishvara bhakti arises, Swami Remaji says, from the understanding of Ishvara as engaging himself in creation srishti for the sake of us individuals, otherwise known as chetanas, meaning conscious being. Creation is not conducted for the sake of inert matter achetanas, who cannot be benefited from it, nor is it conducted for the sake of Ishvara, who is ever fulfilled consciousness, sarvapta kaman, not requiring any benefit from matter. God is the Lord of Prakriti. So, understanding Ishvara to be conducting the creation srishti for our benefit, we should remember God with thanksgiving and gratitude. You may ask, how Ishvara is conducting his creation? The following are the activities, kriyas, of Ishvara regarding his creation for our sake. 1. Srishti, creation. 2. Sthiti, protection. 3. Samharam, absorption. 4. Nigraham, punishing and rewarding according to one's choices. 5. Anugraham, bestowing grace. Atma Jnanam. The relation between Nigraha and Anugraha can be understood by thinking of a man taming a wild animal and having tamed it, domesticated it, loving it and treating it as his pet. Similarly, our wild minds are being tamed by Ishvara through his creation so that we can enter his abode. According to Swami Remaji, devotion to God is the first result of accepting oneself as an offering of God, Ishvara Putra. Ishvara Putra is Atma and Atma is soul. It is the starting point of true bhakti or the beginning of Siddhi Bhakti and not Sadhana Bhakti, because in Siddhi Bhakti we understand ourselves as belonging to God and resembling God wholly and solely and long for the union with God. Siddhi Bhakti or real devotion starts when one accepts oneself as God's offspring. Here, acknowledge God as your Divine Father who is working for your liberation. Ishvara Bhakti can be spoken in two stages, Sadhana Bhakti and Siddhi Bhakti. Siddhi Bhakti or real devotion is that which will lead one to the goal. One who has obtained the Siddhi is Siddhan, the established one. The usual showing of one's devotion to God, like offering flowers, singing devotional songs, reading Puranic scriptures, offering Him delicious food, and praying to protect one's kith and kin. You worship God with patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam with bhakti. This will come under sadhana bhakti because in sadhana bhakti, Ishvara Putra selfhood is not stressed. You worship God as a person, but when you reject yourself as a person and affirm yourself as Atman, that is, affirm oneself as an Ishvara Putra, a conscious being, and not the body, though you do not have the experience of it now, you have started the true journey towards God. It is the starting point of Siddhi Bhakti. You may also worship God with flowers, etc., but your attitude will be different. In what way? The aim of your devotion will be the union with God. But in the sadhana bhakti, you ask favors from God. In Siddhi Bhakti, you long for God and beg Him to grant union or atonement with Him, says the Swami. The new life begins when one becomes mindful of the presence of God as the creator and player, and one's life and also the player of the others and the entire universe. This intimate relationship is always available to everyone, just as the sunlight is available to all. Bhakti is a kind of love. It is pure love or divine love, but the common use of the word love is of so many kinds. Generally, we use the word love for attachment or lust. But human love, when it turns to God, it becomes bhakti. Bhakti is pure love. Pure love or divine love is bhakti. Now, what is the difference between human love and pure love? The difference between ordinary human love and higher human love is this. In ordinary human love, there is delusion, but in pure love, there is no delusion because in pure love, the sattva mind operates. When the soul opens up to its true nature, the pure love for God is released in one's heart, and that is bhakti. Soul is spirit in nature, and that is why you need bhakti to love God, who is the greatest of spirits. Sex is not involved because they are spiritual and belong to the soul, not to the body. In ordinary human love, we find many kinds and many levels. Impure form of love, selfish and unselfish love, possessive and non-possessive love, gentle and crude love, carnal and spiritual love. The child loves its doll. The mother loves her children. The patriot loves his country. The miser loves his hoard. The scientist loves the pursuit of truth. The artist loves beauty in things animate and inanimate. Generally speaking, we love things which give us or promise us pleasure. There are objects which delight our senses and we love them, and there are objects which delight the ordinary mind of man, men and women, and he loves them. There are matters which delight the higher mind of man and they love them. Thus, ordinary human love is of many kinds and many levels. Moreover, ordinary human love can also spring from mind feeling or mamata or affection or appreciation. Generally, we love whatever is ours. Sometimes we become fond of somebody even if he or she is a very mediocre person. We become attached to him or her for some particular quality. Then there is the love which springs from an appreciation of the worthy qualities of the object loved. We love the country we are born, the place where we are born, the school where we learnt, the teachers who taught us, the language which is our mother tongue, and so on. We have the tendency to love the sources of what we are and have. We love those who love us. We generally tend to reciprocate affection. We love those whose contact gives us pleasure. We love those who are possessed of worthy qualities. As I have said, in ordinary human love, we find many kinds and many levels. In higher ordinary human love, higher faculties are operative. For example, when one loves high-class music or high-class paintings or the beauties of nature, high human faculties are operative. But that is also not pure love. When one turns their love towards God, pure love starts. Bhakti is divine love to God. But in Bhakti also there are many levels. Asura Bhakti, Murattu Bhakti, Moodha Bhakti, Swartha Bhakti, Satvika Bhakti, Rajasa Bhakti, Tamasa Bhakti, and so on. Saint Tyagaraja begs the Lord to bestow on him Satvika Bhakti. These are, we may call, sadhana divine bhakti. The highest form of devotion is called Parama Bhakti. Parama Bhakti is Siddhi Bhakti. It is pure divine bhakti. It is that devotion where a devotee always will be thinking of God, and whatever one sees will be reminding one of God. Let me give an example where Sri Krishna talks about such a devotee. In chapter 12, verse 6, Sri Krishna says, those devotees who have Parama Bhakti, they will always worship me, fixing their hearts in me, and they will resign all their action to me. They will make me their goal of life and always remain thinking of me, says Krishna. We will see more in this line in the topic Mat Chitta. Vaishnavites speak of Parabhakti, Parama Bhakti, and Paramaikanta Bhakti. The classification might differ from school to school. Sri Krishna spoke about Bhakti in so many slokas in Bhagavad Gita. Here we are taking a couple of them, pinpointing the mental attitude that a sincere devotee will be having towards Krishna. In chapter 12, in the 7th verse, Sri Krishna says, devotees who always think of me, I will cross them from births and deaths. I will save them from the clutches of the ocean of samsara and take them to me, to my abode. The difference between desire and love is this. Desire wants to use the object for its bhoga enjoyment. Love, on the other hand, wants to make itself useful to the object and derives its delight from the happiness it offers to the object. So, love can be defined as that emotion which delights in the knowledge of the object and in being of service to its person, animal, or plant growth and development. This is how the mother loves her child. The highest form of love is defended by Plato, and it is called Platonic love. It is a love where sexual desire or kama has no part. Love can only exist between conscious beings, chetanas, having good connection, samyoga, with one another. Generally speaking, one can love another of the same kind. So, if a person is to love God, he must have an element in his or her which is similar to God himself. If that element is not there, Ishvara Bhakti would be impossible. Pure love towards God is possible only when one understands that he or she is Ishvara Putra, the same kind of God, Sajatiya, and not the body, which is Vijatiya. Thus, Bhakti can be considered in two stages. The first stage is Abhyasa Bhakti, where the sadhaka tries to love God. Abhyasa Bhakti is the activity of the mind or antakarana, inner instrument. Antakarana is commonly known as mind. Even to try to love God, one should have at least a bit of pure mind. The Ashuddha, impure mind cannot love God. So, in Bhakti Abhyasa or Abhyasa Bhakti, what happens is the mind gets pure, Shuddha. Gradually, it becomes Sattva. It is the Sattva mind that can really love God. So, in the attempt to love God, the human person verily effects a transformation in his being. Bhakti Abhyasa diminishes the ego. When Abhyasa Bhakti becomes real Bhakti, it means that to some extent at least, the sadhaka has awakened to his real nature or soul nature. So, to make the earthbound desire flow Godward is the effect of bhakti. To make our desires, which are now flowing towards the creature, flow towards the Creator is bhakti. The longing to know God and long to unite with God is bhakti. The emotion bhakti pertains to the soul and not to the mind. The mind is subtle matter and the soul is spirit. So, only a soul can long for God, who is the soul of souls. And only that soul, which is at least a little bit awakened to its nature, can long for God. True devotion to God is the nature of the soul. Bhakti is the innate quality of the soul, or rather, by bhakti, the innate quality of the soul is released. We are sleeping in heaven and dreaming this earthly life, says Sadguru Swami Remaji. We should awaken to our soul's nature. One should truly and intensively long for God, and that will lead one to the state of divine. In worldly matters, if one goes longing for a goal without taking proper action to fulfill it, one will never attain it. But if one can long for the non-dual atonement with God, with all one's heart, mind and soul, like a girl mad for the contact with her lover, Even if one does not practice any other sadhanas, God will take him or her to himself. Devotion to God is the longing to aspire after his likeness. Jesus said, "Be ye perfect as your Lord is perfect." Devotion to God and the knowledge of one's true identity are connected. For example, the son who has forgotten himself due to some accident then starts recovering and knowing who he really is, will also at the same time start knowing his father. When we attain God's likeness, one may think, what will happen after that? The answer is, we will have nothing to get and nothing to do. That is the end. That is the fulfillment. After obtaining one's true identity, one will be pure witness, sakshi, to the activities of the world. That includes one's life also. Most people think that the fruit of devotion is to be able to get something which they are unable to get, that is, fulfillment of their worldly desires. One should start with sadhana bhakti in a simple way by listening Shravana to saints' stories, singing spiritual songs, repetition of names, listening to God's countless auspicious qualities. They will help to awaken to one's true nature. But by hearing bhajans, hearing the story of the Lord, the saints thanking God for all good things He has given us, by wondering His creation, meditating on His Ananta Kalyana Gunas, doing things for Him, not only puja but good human service, etc. In all these, hearing of bhajans, tevaram, prabandham, tiruvachakam, abhang, etc. is very important because they are sung by those who have full devotion towards the Lord, which we lack and want to cultivate. But the real help comes when the sadhana bhakti turns to true bhakti, when one affirms oneself as Ishvara Putra, offspring of God, belonging to God and resembling God and supported by God. Another point is that one should cultivate devotion to God by trying to understand God from His creation, which is the visible world. It may be hard, but the contemplation that God has become the world will help one to worship God through His creation. In chapter 18, verse 46, Sri Krishna says, all that is knowable is pervaded by God, and whoever worships Him in one's daily life will attain perfection. There are tons of Upanishadic passages that says the world is God's creation and it is pervaded by God. Now we may have a question. While these are facts, why is the true bhakti so rare? It is because 1. God is not known and understood. 2. We do not know ourselves correctly. How to know God and us correctly? First, we should understand that God cannot be known as an object, and so also our true identity. Here we are not going to discuss about this, but it is good to understand this point. Sri Krishna says in chapter 10, verse 10, those who are devoted to me and have their minds in me, their senses absorbed in me, always speak about me and delight in my greatness. To such a person, dadami buddhi yogam, I will give buddhi yoga. What is buddhi yogam? It is the power of the intellect to analyze the difference between Atma and Anatma. In another place, Krishna says, the devotees who keep their minds firmly in Him think He is their life, Prananatha, speak to one another about Him and delight in thinking of Him, ever staunchly devoted to Him and worship Him. He will bestow on them the power of discrimination between Atma and Anatma, Buddhi Yogam, and bless them to abide in His abode. The above said attributes here are all the attributes of great devotees, which we will study later under the title Matchitta. Here Sri Krishna says that to a true great devotee who sets his or her goal of life to obtain Nirguna Brahma Jnanam, he will confer the power to discriminate between Atma and Anatma, which sadhana comes under Jnana Yoga. But Krishna really stresses Bhakti Yoga to his devotees. Every soul is dear to God, no doubt. But first we should turn to Him and take Him as our only refuge. For that, we should understand that God is the creator and owner of this world and our persona, and every portion of it is God's, but no portion of it is God. Bhagavatam 11th Skandam speaks about three types of devotees: good, intermediate, and ordinary. Swami Remaji says there is a faculty heart in us by which we can apprehend and love God. That faculty is now dormant. It must be awakened, must be exercised. The beginning of the awakening exercise is listening or Shravana, starting with listening to the three great substances and the unparalleled attributes of God. One must hear about God from the proper authoritative sources. Then one should do contemplation or do manana in tranquility on what one has heard about God. Here, repetition of the divine name or Nama Japa will help. So, start your devotion in the simple way by doing Nama Japa. For the Nama Japa to be successful, one should choose a name for God and associate all that one had heard about Him. In another way of saying is this: we should start devotion in the worship of God. That is, first we should thank God for all the blessings that we are enjoying in life now. It may be less or more as given by Him. We should think of Him with melted heart. This is the starting point of cultivating devotion. This will lead us to thank Him for all that He may give tomorrow. This will help us to remember God always. That will strengthen our relationship with God more and more. Usually, normal people will worship God for Karya Siddhi, benefits that He may give. But Ishvara Suputras, or good offerings of God, should worship God for strengthening one's relationship with God. Only if we connect God with our life in this way, the relationship will strengthen. The point to be understood and cherished: Bhakti works as a lubricating oil for all the spiritual sadhanas. It has the capacity to melt the heart of God. The topic Ishvara Bhakti is completed. The next topic is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, the path of action. There are many ways to obtain wisdom, jnana. Among them, to obtain wisdom through karma is called karma yoga. The activities that we do daily in our life, if they are performed with a new attitude, it will become karma yoga. What is it? We will see subsequently. Krishna made karma yoga sadhana very famous by his Gita. According to him, our actions, that is our everyday life, will not come in between our sadhana if we perform our daily life as karma yoga. In the chapter 2, verse 48, Sri Krishna says, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Do all your daily activities in the attitude of yoga, karma yoga, with detachment. The word detachment is very important. What is karma yoga? In short, relinquishing both the doership of action and the fruit of action is karma yoga. Now let us take the word karma. Karma means activities, but it can also mean the result of our activities. The good and bad activities that we have done in our life are stored up as thoughts in our mind, and that is also called karma. We have understood about this earlier. So, both our activities and the storehouse of thoughts in our minds are called karma. The storehouse of thoughts are called in higher wisdom as sanchita karma, and it is also called samskara, latent tendencies. Scriptures speak about three kinds of karmas, namely prarabdha karma, sanchita karma, and agami karma. That portion of karma which has started to give result in this birth is prarabdha karma. Those which are in the storage is sanchita karma, and agami karma are yet to come. This is a rough explanation. Now let us see how Sri Krishna explains the action and its results step by step. He says in chapter 3 verse 5, none can stop activities. From the time of birth, everyone, whether one wants it or not, are continuously acting. One is compelled to act. Even if one sits quietly without moving, one's inner mechanisms and thoughts are continuously and incessantly working in one's body and mind, without one's obvious exertions. One may sit motionless, but no one can stop the inner body's movements like blood circulation, heartbeat, and so on. So, one should understand this, says Sri Krishna. In chapter 3, verse 6, Sri Krishna says, the one who sits without doing action and says he is motionless but wanders everywhere in the mind is a hypocrite. Here I remember an episode on Buddha's life, which my guru used to tell me. The story of the thief Angulimala. Angulimala lived in an adjacent forest near a city because he used to cut the fingers of people who go near his premises unknowingly and would wear them as a garland in his neck. People named him Angulimala. One time, Buddha walked with his Sishyas to the village where Angulimala lived. People warned Buddha not to go to a particular side of the village where the thief Angulimala was living. But Buddha went walking with his walking stick in the direction where the thief was. When Angulimala heard someone approaching him, he said, "Stop." Buddha replied, "I have stopped, but you have not." The guy was puzzled. He thought, I am sitting and he was walking, but he says he has stopped. How come? The beautiful episode ends like this. The thief Angulimala surrendered to Buddha and became one of his disciples. He paid his karmic debt and obtained nirvana. Our very existence from the time of birth until death is constantly changing and moving, and it is not in our hands to stop moving or changing. Almost all of us do not notice this or be aware of it. Then The question is how to perform karma yoga. If one does one's work in a different way, that is, in a new bhava attitude, the same action will become karma yoga. What is that new bhava? It is to perform activities without the attitude of I am the doer and without attachment to the results of one's action. That is the new bhava. But one may find it hard. Why? It is because only when one is attached to the result, one will do the work with enthusiasm. Otherwise, the enthusiasm will diminish. One will not feel like working. Only when one knows that I do this work to get this result, one will feel like doing the work. Especially, ordinary people cannot work without attachment to the result. Only advanced Vivekis can do so. But one should not think that Karma Yoga means there should not be any result for the work. No, that is not right. Every action has consequence whether it is small or big. For every action, the result will come without fail. One cannot stop it. That is the law of God, Ishvara Niyati, or order of nature. Therefore, one should understand that the result of action is not in our hand. For example, if one runs fast, one's heart will pant. One cannot stop panting after running fast. Sugar tastes sweet. When one looks at the chief, one gets fear. If one looks at an infant, one gets happiness. This is the law of nature, the action and the reaction. Let me repeat that Sri Krishna says in chapter 2, verse 48, do the work without desire in the result of the work, have samabhava in the result. That is yoga. Now, one may ask, is it possible? Sri Krishna says that he will not say anything that one cannot do. Even after hearing all this, due to one's conditioned mind, one may still lament that one would not get enthusiasm if one does not get attached to the result. So what is wanted is that A. There should be a goal for every work. B. The work should be done with enthusiasm. And C. It also should become karma yoga. Now the question is how? Sri Krishna gives his answer. He says, definitely one should have enthusiasm, but the enthusiasm should not point towards the result of one's work, but it should point towards God's grace. One should work enthusiastically to get the grace of God, irrelevant to the result of the work. Krishna says in chapter 2, verse 47, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Constantly perform your obligatory duties without attachment. In chapter 5, verse 10, Sri Krishna says that he who acts abandoning attachment to the result of the action and dedicating one's deed to Brahman, we should take it as Saguna Brahman, Ishvara, is untainted by sin as a lotus leaf by water. Swami Remaji shows how to practice and do it as pro-God living. Living for God is to live for the world welfare. So, the enthusiasm should come through the thought, I am doing this for the world welfare, Loka Sangraham. And if I act for the world, it is as if I am doing the work for God, and that will yield God's grace. In chapter 3, verse 20, Sri Krishna gives the example of King Janaka and says to Arjuna, he did it, so you can do it. Janaka derived enthusiasm from the thought that he is working for Loka Sangraha, welfare, world welfare for the people. Swami Remaji says that this statement is not only for kings but also commoners. How? The instruction on spiritual sadhana is for all. There is no separate sadhanas for kings and commoners. The actions may differ, but the underlying attitude to sadhana is the same for all, and the result is also same for all. God is spirit, but his creation is matter. The matter cannot move without God's presence. The world is God's form. So, if we serve the world with its animate and inanimate forms, we will be as if directly serving God. One should stamp this attitude in one's mind. In chapter 3, verse 25, and also in verses 20, and in some other places, Sri Krishna mentions about Loka Sangraha, world welfare. Therefore, Loka Sangraha and Karma Kaushala should be one's aim, phala. So one should understand that the world is God's creation and live one's life for the world welfare or Loka Sangraha. That includes one's welfare also. Moreover, one should derive enthusiasm from the thought that one's action is really a service to God and try to improve one's action. Karma Yoga is opposite to self-centered swartha actions. Self-centered actions should be converted into geo-centered actions. Geocentric actions are Loka Sangraha actions. So, serving the world is the worship of God. Loka Seva is Ishvara Aradhana. Karma Yoga also helps to live a better life. How? A work can be viewed from different angles. Let us take sportsmanship. For example, two people play cards. Both will have little anxiety over result. One plays for money and the other plays to improve his brain. How? He will read books on card playing. He will do research, not for money, but to improve the capacity of his brain. He would not curse the winner. He will be happy that he had played well. This is one explanation for the worldly benefit of Karma Yoga. Nowadays, everything, including play, has become commercial, but we are not going into it. The other one is Karma Yoga will reduce anxiety in action. When one does not have anxiety while working, the work will be done better and will have more dexterity. For example, a man who was an ordinary clerk in a bank possessed a good voice. Once the bank conducted a variety musical show and announced that anyone can join the competition. Also, they announced whoever comes first in the music competition will get a chance to become a playback singer. The poor man practiced only one song but very well for several months with great expectation followed by anxiety to win the first prize. On the particular day when he stood before the mic to sing, he totally forgot the song. His mind was blank. For several seconds he stood before the mic with empty mind. The audience started shouting, "Sing, sing," but he could not remember anything. Out of great shame, he left the stage and walked towards the road as quickly as possible to go home. His heart was broken because he had lost a great chance to become a singer in the movies. At that time, a man came running to him and said that the manager wants to see him. His heart was pounding when he stood before the manager. The manager said, "Go to the stage and sing something because the next two persons did not show up." The man was surprised to hear this, went to the stage and reluctantly sang the song which he had practiced for several months. He was relaxed because he is singing only for someone else. There was no anxiety in him. He just did his duty to the manager. No doubt to say that he won the first prize. His practice and anxiety-less singing gave him a victory. So, Karma Yoga gives not only spiritual result but also practical benefit. But One should not forget that Gita is a moksha sastra. One should approach it for purity of mind and for liberation. One should enjoy the byproducts with thankful attitude to the Lord. Summing up, Swami Remaji says, doing one's duty, however meticulously and righteously done, is not karma yoga. Doing one's duty without attachment to the result and also without being an agent of the activities is karma yoga. Sri Krishna says this repeatedly. Still, people make mistake knowingly or unknowingly. They think doing one's duty is karma yoga. No, doing one's duty without attachment is karma yoga. How to do without attachment has been repeatedly said by Sri Krishna. So far, we have seen several instructions for karma phala tyagam, but we have not seen how to relinquish katrutva buddhi or I am the doer attitude. So, the Swami teaches how to relinquish katrutva buddhi or I am the doer attitude gradually, step by step, like this. One should start the sadhana with seva bhava. I do and think for God and not for my selfish purpose. Attitude. This is what is meant when we say Namaha in most of the mantras. Lord, I live for you and not for myself. Here, for God means for His creation. That attitude is called Samashti Abhimana. Karma Yoga started in the sadhana level, if practiced well enough and long enough, with faith will lead to the Siddhi level, which Krishna calls Naishkarmya Siddhi in chapter 18, verse 49. What is Naishkarmya Siddhi? Swami Remaji says, it is the Sakshi Jnana. When one obtains Sakshi Jnana, one will be a witness to God's play, that is Ishvara Leela. So, one should start the sadhana with Samashti Abhimana. One should live one's life not minding only about one's family, but also should live with mindful of world in which one lives, which means one should live for the world welfare, Loka Sangraha, which includes one's welfare also. Then one should move to Sahabhava, that is, I am doing along with God attitude. Here, one understands that God is the main doer and one is His co-doer attitude. The attitude will lead to He does everything and I am just a witness. It is the Sakshi Bhava. So, the three steps that the Swami teaches are Seva Bhava, Sahabhava and Sakshi Bhava, relinquish Kartrutva Buddhi and to obtain self-realization. The point to be understood and cherished, Karma Yoga Sadhana will lead one to liberation if one performs one's duty without attachment. The topic Karma Yoga is completed. The next topic is Yajnam. Yajnam, sacrificial worship. Yajna is the topic that we are going to study now. Yajna means sacrificial worship. Yajna is an act of sacrificial worship. When one sacrifices something to somebody, it is called yajna, a sacrificial worship. Now, who is the one that is worshipped through yajna? The answer differs person to person. Some worship the one God and some worship the deities, the demigods, for some favor. The Vedas have mentioned various sacrificial worships to demigods to get their favors for one's personal selfish benefits. In life, if someone sacrifices a thing for us, our heart goes out for them, is it not? Similarly, the scriptures say, Devas, the celestial gods and goddesses, become happy by our giving them offerings and do us favors in return. All the activities to please God, Devata Prityartham, is yajna. The act of yajnam is the propitiation of devas, and by propitiating so we get their favors. But yajna is not only deity worship. We should be very clear about this. It has been said that yajna means sacrificial act or worship. Sacrificial acts are done in many ways. There are several ways of sacrifice. Giving or donating an article to someone is a sacrifice yajna. It is a material sacrifice. Working for others, that is, doing physical action for others, or undergoing physical hardships for others, like elder sisrusha, guru sisrusha, that is, serving elders and guru. And such acts are also yajnas. It is physical sacrificial act. Observing upavasam, the whole night vigil for Shivaratri, etc., for some spiritual benefit is subtler sacrificial act than the former physical act. Strenuous physical spiritual act like kaya klesha and so on is also yajna. Reading shastras, that is swadhyaya, is an yajna. Contemplation on the truth, the manana vicharam for jnana, is yajna. But yajna, if it is done for world welfare, it will become one of the acts of purifying one's mind. Serving God and serving His world are the same. It has been already said that one's mind serving, it has been already said that the world is God's form. The forms act as if it is real in the proximity of God. They cannot act just by themselves, being inert by nature. This also we have studied. In Gita, chapter 4, Sri Krishna speaks about various yajnas from verses 26 to 30. We are not going into it in detail. The tradition prescribes 5 yajnas known as Pancha Mahayajna to the twice born or Brahmins. They are deity worship, studying scriptures, teaching scriptural texts to others and meditating, worship of ancestors, act of kindness to the subhuman, and welcoming the guests and honoring them. It shows that any unselfish act is an yajna. To do an act without selfishness as yajnam is karma yogam. It is a rough meaning. Why do I say so? It is because in karma yoga, Sri Krishna asks us sangam tyaktva, remove our attachment to our earthly life, and also explains how to do one's duty without attachment in nishkama karma. In yajna, Sri Krishna explains how a sadhaka's attitude in living one's life should be. So far, we are all living for ourselves as we like. But Sri Krishna asks us to live for the world welfare, which is equivalent to living for God. Yajnas are of 2 kinds. Kama yajna, that is, sacrificial act to fulfill one's personal desires, like getting more wealth, begetting children, for fame and name, to enter various higher realms of after physical death, and so on. The other one is called Nishkama Yajna, and it is the sacrificial act for the sake of the world welfare. If we observe carefully, one's actions are done through karmendriyas, jnanendriyas and antakaranam, body, senses and mind. Using those three faculties, one lives one life now with selfishness. Selfishness only comes when one does it with swartham, that is the for me attitude. For me activities bind. For God activities release one from bondage. In chapter 4, verse 32, Krishna says, Bahuvida Yajna Vitata. The Vedas contain a storehouse of yajnas. They are karmajanyam. So, sadhakas should understand this and be free of them by living for God, that is, for the world welfare. It is worth mentioning here that in the chapter 4, verse 30, Krishna says, those who eat the remnant of yajna go to Brahma Sanatanam, the eternal abode. Here, the Swami says, we should not go by the literal meaning that of the eaters of the remnant of yajna will attain liberation. To attain liberation is not that easy. Krishna himself says in the very next verse that Vedas contain a storehouse of yajnas. They are karmajanyam. They would not liberate one. They perpetuate karma. So, Sri Krishna asks us to understand the Atma Vidya, the truth that he spoke to Arjuna, that one should be free from karma janya yajnas. So, a serious sadhaka should understand the truth and be unattached to them, karma janya yajnas, and have the world welfare, loka sangraha karya, their aim in doing yajnas. Then one shall be free. We have already understood that to do and act without selfishness is yajnam, and roughly it relates with karma yogam. Now we should understand the difference between karma yoga and nishkama karma. Karma yoga is a sadhana because the sadhaka puts a pressure on one's will to stop I am the doer attitude and replace it with God does through me attitude, and also try to detach oneself from the result. In short, Karma Yoga sadhana needs willed effort to practice. But Nishkama Karma is not a practice sadhana. It is the effect of devotion, Sat Bhakti. Without Bhakti, Nishkama Karma is not possible. One can try, but without Bhakti, it is not possible. In Bhakti, one leaves the fruit of action to God. It is the attitude, I do this act for God. Whatever He gives, I will take it as His gift. But most of us desire for fruit for one's action. We can only discard a lower fruit phala for a higher fruit. That is all. So, sadhakas should cultivate devotion by willed effort, and the real devotion is the gift of God. One should not forget this. What is wanted is unselfish sacrifice. Sri Krishna also says that if yajnas are done without attachment as a karma yoga, they have the capacity to melt one's sins or karma. Then in the same chapter 4, verse 33, Sri Krishna says, knowledge sacrifice is superior to material sacrifice because all karmas culminate in jnana. In the same chapter 4, verse 24, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. Krishna talks about Jnana Yajnam. Everything is Brahman, including the one who performs the Yajna sacrifice. Now, what is the point that Sri Krishna is trying to convey to us through teaching about Yajna? Sri Krishna points out through the concept of Yajna that one should cultivate detachment to one's entire life in the world, including one's everyday self, the existential self, that is the ego, and be established in the truth firmly. Brahman Jnana, or realization of self, is the goal of life. To be established in the self, one should totally relinquish the body, mind, and ego. That is possible only when one understands the truth of body, mind, and ego, and also about oneself, and be established in the truth by sadhana. This should be done while living. Moreover, one cannot relinquish one's life by a physical act. That is not possible. One can relinquish them only by knowing them in the light of the truth, says Swami Remaji. Moreover, Krishna says one should analyze yajna with regard to our life. That will purify our minds. After purifying one's mind, at least to some extent, one should seek an enlightened Guru. My Guru taught me like this. Ishvara is all-pervading consciousness. There is no one above him. Brahma is objectless consciousness. According to my Guru's teachings, Ishvara alone is the eternal liberated one. All others were once bound and then, by the grace of Ishvara, are liberated. There is a sacred word, Ishvara Arpanam. We have already seen that what all we know as an object is God's form, including our body and thoughts. The one who is performing the offering now is deluded Ishvara Putra or deluded soul. When he sees all the objects as God's form, Ishvara Rupa, and all the activities as God's play or Ishvara Leela, one's delusion would evanesce and one will experience oneself as conscious being, never was involved in samsara, and at the same time will experience non-dual atonement with God. Because God is Brahma Jnani, one will also obtain Brahma Jnana. In many places, Krishna has said in Gita, if one comes to him, he will also obtain Brahman, the state of objectless consciousness. The whole of Gita's teachings come under this. My Guru would say, Ishvara is Brahman in action and Ishvara in inaction is Brahman. But their distinction should be recognized. When it comes to the point who performs the yajna, the Advaitin and the Visishtadvaitin differ in their explanation. We are not going into that issue. We are only concerned about how we can offer our entire life to God and be done with karmic effects that bind us to the earthly life. My revered Guru says, one should be concerned how to make one's life itself an unselfish yajna. For that, first one should know what is life. Life is an aggregation of activities. Sthula karmas in different stages, Sukshma karmas in different stages. So, by true knowing and true attitude, or Samyak Jnana and Samyak Bhava, one should make one's life itself an unselfish yajna. The one who is liberated from the selfish attachment to one's life will make one's life itself as a sacrificial act, yajna. Then all his karmas, samskaras, will wither away. Let us understand the 5 things that are involved in yajna, sacrifice of life, according to Swami Remaji's teachings. 1. The one who does the yajna is Ishvara Putra. 2. The yajna devata is God Ishvara. 3. The yajna kundam is one's body, Sharira. 4. The habis, butter, is all one's activities, Jivana Karya. 5. The homam, process, which is the act of true knowing, Samyak Jnana Abhyasa. In this, the Yajna Devata, that is Ishvara, is important. Only by offering our acts to Ishvara, the Yajnam will be Niswartha, unselfish. Without it, the Yajna will become Swartha, selfish. Having this in mind, one should sacrifice one's life itself as the worship of God, says Swami Remaji. The final understanding is this: all actions are Prakriti's movements, but will Prakriti move by itself? No, it moves by Ishvara Sankalpa or in Ishvara's proximity. So, by understanding all activities are Ishvara Prerita, Ishvara Leela, one can separate oneself from Prakriti Sambandha and realize one's true identity. Our life should be offered to Ishvara, who is the Yajna Devan. The offering is made to Ishvara, who is our inner ruler and controller, Antaryami. We, the Ishvara Putras, are the ones who are making the offering. We are now ignorant to our true identity and deluded by our earthly life. By propitiating Ishvara through our entire life, by understanding and remembering the 5 truths, Satya Panchaka, Satya Jnana Anusantana, with regard to God, oneself, one's ego, one's body, and one's life, and live a pro-God life, we can make our life an offering to God, Ishvara. The point to be understood and cherished: we are already gods. Delusion hides Him from us. Reknowing the known as gods would make the delusion vanish along with ignorance. The topic Yajna is completed. The next topic is Samabhavam.
Samabhava, freedom of choice. Samabhava means the attitude to take the duality with even mind. Where there are 2 different substances, there only one can talk about samam. Samam means equal. When will we call a man father? Only when one has a child. Otherwise, he is just a man. In chapter 2, verse 38, Sri Krishna recommends the equanimity of mind to the sadhakas. In another place, Sri Krishna says to obtain equipoise is yoga. So to achieve equanimity of mind regarding the dualities of the world is an important sadhana to obtain self-realization. Shaiva Siddhanta calls it Iruvanai Uppu. But one should never forget that even to practice samabhava regarding dualities, one should cultivate sattva guna. Sattva guna will help one practice samabhava. So purity of mind is an important must for all the spiritual sadhanas. Equanimity towards opposites does not mean insensitive to dualities. Liberated ones are supersensitive because they have gone above the sensations and experiences of pleasure and pain, which are connected to adjunct. This is also an important point to be remembered. What is samabhava? Samabhava is that mind which accepts the opposites with equal mind. Samabhava means to be equal to duality. Example, all the opposites, like good and bad, sorrow and happiness, heat and cold, profit and loss, hatred and love, winning and losing, success and defeat, anger and peace, beauty and ugliness, sweet and bitterness, and so on. We all know that the world is full of opposites. In fact, the world is constructed to practice equipoise, which will help one to discriminate what is permanent and what is impermanent, or Atma, Anatma, discrimination. Now a question may rise. How can one be equal-minded to opposites? How sweet and bitterness can be equal? What does it mean to be equal-mindedness towards opposites? Suppose a person says, whatever I eat tastes the same. Is it samabhava? Did he achieve samabhava? No, that is not samabhava. That means he has some problem in his body and he should consult a doctor. Similarly, if one says that both concord and discord in musical notes sound the same to him, it means he has some problem in his ear. Some people may think that samabhava means to sit or keep one's body like a wood. Some people try not to see the difference between beauty and ugliness, hot and sweet foods, the difference between profit and loss. Is that samabhava? No, it is not so. Samabhava is not inert mind. Samabhava is not to make the mind deaden. To deaden the mind is not equanimity of mind and is not good also. Equanimity in the face of opposites does not mean that one is insensitive to those dual stimuli. The one who has samabhava will respond to life but finds one true satisfaction in a higher dimension of existence by which one is indifferent to the reactions around in one, but the stimuli in the lower dimension. So, those who have controlled their senses and go above duality will understand the duality, but they will be indifferent to it. Here are a few examples. A man wants to earn by independent means. He does not want to serve a boss, but wants to earn independently. Two persons offered him a job, one for 10,000 rupees and another for 40,000 rupees. He refused both of them, saying they both mean the same to him. Why? It is because his desire is to earn by independent means and not to work under somebody. So, he neither seeks nor shuns the jobs because his desire is to earn independently. Here's another example. A young man, a bachelor, has two sisters. Both of them were looking for a nice alliance for their brother. One had selected a beautiful but uneducated girl, and another had selected a fairly beautiful but very educated girl. They asked their brother who is the best. The brother said, "To me, they are both the same." Hearing this, the censor's screen questioned, "How can they both mean the same to you?" The brother said, "I do not say educated and uneducated, or the beautiful and the fairly beautiful are the same. I know the differences between them. But what I meant when I said they are both the same to me, I have already a girl in my mind." So one should understand that the world is a place for human beings to learn. It is a place to do sadhana. The world is a training institute. Here, not only one undergo trained, but also has to pass the exam. In a spy training institute, the candidates first will be taught for several months about the spying, and then will be tested for fear and temptation. Only those who pass the exams will be selected for posts. A training institute will definitely have tests. Will there be a spy training institute without tests on temptation and threats? Suppose a man boasts about his valor. How to find out about whether what he says is true or not? Well, send him to war. Suppose a person says he knows swimming very well. How do you test him? Just throw him in the water. There is a joke that is connected with this idea. A person said to another that he will never get angry at any situation. The other one was extremely surprised. He asked, "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said. Again, the other one said, "Sir, I cannot believe it. Are you telling me the truth?" "Yes," said the other. Again, the person asked, "How can that be possible? Are you sure?" After several times of questioning, the first one shouted, "I tell you, I will not get angry." "How many times have to tell you this?" The other person just burst into laughter. A very great saint named Uppar, at the last phase of his life, lived in a small city in South India and kept doing his service to the Lord, which is to clean the path with a spatula-like instrument for the devotees to walk to the temple without hardship. The story says that when he collects the dirt in his hand, the dirt will turn into precious gems. Even after seeing the gems shining in his hands with calm mind, the saint would throw the gems on the heap of dirt on the side of the path and continue his work. In the Gita, Sri Krishna uses the word gold and dirt. The experience of God in Saint Uppar's heart made him see both dirt and gems as equal. How? As God's creation. Moreover, when the celestial damsels tried to lure him, he said to them, "You need not strain yourselves by moving here and there with various attractive movements before me. My heart is already given to my Lord Shiva." And they felt ashamed and left. The longing for the union of God makes the sadhakas desireless towards the world. Sages who have achieved samabhava will very well understand the dualities, but will be indifferent to it. Their minds will be fixed on God, and they will work from higher dimension. The ones who practices samabhava derives this happiness in a different place. Swami Ramaji says, "The world is a place for doing spiritual practices. It is a place for learning, a place where lessons are taught, lessons to achieve equanimity of mind. The world is also a testing place. That is why the world is full of dualities. So, one should not dismay dualities. God has designed this world for us to get equanimity of mind. The world is built for having dualities to teach human beings to get samabhava. So, there is no need to go to the forest to do spiritual sadhana. Living itself could be made as a sadhana. God is constantly teaching his ordinary offspring. He is constantly testing and improving his good offspring. The successful offspring are perfect offspring of God. They are those who are immersed in the bliss of the non-dual at-one-ment with God. Samabhava is freedom of choice, and it is the fruit of sincere and long exercise of choices in God's interest to please God. Equanimity is a quality of God. In chapter 9, verse 29, Sri Krishna says, "I am the same to all. To me there is none hateful or dear." Swami Ramaji says, Samabhava is the state of Jivan Mukta, the liberated one. It is freedom of choice. So, freedom, choice, one should convert or transfer one's selfish activity to pro-God activity. The one will be released from selfishness. Living for oneself and living for God are opposite. So, if one puts aside to live for oneself and to live for God, it will result in samabhava, which is a divine quality. To get that quality is a very big thing. The fruit of Ashtanga Yoga will be achieved in the practice of samabhava. If one wants to go to the realm of the eternal abode, one should discard all the earthly qualities of which the base is selfishness and be established in the attributes of God. This may appear a little strange or even unacceptable to many. One may say like this: our life is based on having mind towards people and objects. If you remove that, there is no life. Then why do we need God? We want God to help us remove all difficulties that we face in our life, is it not? So, what is wrong in having one's heart towards worldly object? One can worship God and also have desires for worldly objects. Here is where we go wrong according to Sri Krishna's teachings. Krishna is not against your having concern towards people and objects. Of course, in one way of putting, he may even scold you for not having enough concern for them, but he wants you to have concern towards people and objects, but on his behalf. To have such an attitude, one should understand what or who is God and what is his relationship to oneself and to others, the world. We have seen about this earlier in Tattvatrayam, the great three substances. Sri Krishna speaks about them through his Gita. In chapter 5, verse 3, Sri Krishna says, "The one who does not have desire or hatred and possesses a mind of equipoise is a sannyasi." So, a true sannyasi will be without hate and desire and will have equipoise. Such a soul will be relieved from all bondages. Let me conclude this topic by Sri Krishna's words on how a person will be who has achieved mental purity. In chapter 14, verse 24 and 25, Krishna speaks about the criteria of a person who has achieved equipoise regarding duality and went beyond the three gunas. He says, "The one who has equal mind in pleasure and pain, gold and dirt, and be indifferent to likes and dislikes, who is brave, who has same unshaken attitude in praise and abuses, does not lose heart in honor and dishonor, and has equal attitude towards friends and enemies, and totally renounce all wishful thought, is said to have obtained equipoise and is above the three gunas." The point to be understood and cherished: equanimity of mind is the sign of a liberated person. So, by all means, one should work for its obtainment. The topic of samabhava is completed. The next topic is atma, anatma discrimination. Atma, anatma vivechanam, the self and non-self discrimination. The discrimination between the eternal soul and the ephemeral body is called atma, anatma vivechanam. This is the truth that the Upanishads roar and the Bhagavat Gita explains. Sri Krishna's very first Upadesha to Arjuna is Atma Anatma Vivechanam. Sri Krishna, in the very beginning of his teaching, taught Arjuna that the soul is eternal and the body is ephemeral. This is the ground of Sanatana Dharma. This is what Upanishads teach. This is the unique, unparalleled wisdom of the rishis. India is great because she is the one who said that individual is not the body, but an Atman, or soul. Puranas are given to explain this profound, deepest, and subtlest truth in a story form for common people to understand the truths of Upanishad. Swami Ramaji says that to think that one is the body is delusion. Why does this message not get into the system of human beings? It is because people do not like the premise of their thinking disturbed. What is the premise? Premise is the fundamental assumption underlying thinking. Physical body is premise for all kinds of physical activities, and mind is the premise for all kinds of thinking, mental activities. When one has built a big multi-storied building upon a false foundation, one would not like to come out of one's premises. Here, the multi-storied building refers to assets like money, land, gold, buildings, and so on. And the false premise is that I am the body notion. Jesus said his words would not penetrate the rich. Why? It is not that rich people are bad. Not all rich people are bad. It is because the rich man has more assets built upon the false foundation. The rich do not want to demolish that building that they have built on wrong premise. They do not want to let go their assets. That is why they do not want to change their attitude or unable to change their attitude. There are exceptions in all categories. Arjuna's feeling compassion for his enemies are very high class, but the premise underlying those feelings were wrong. Arjuna thought that he is the body, and all others are bodies. He was ignorant about the soul, or Atman. That is why Sri Krishna started to convey the truth to Arjuna in the beginning itself that the body is different from the soul. The soul is eternal and cannot be killed. Krishna points out the underlying delusion in Arjuna's arguments. He smashed his arguments by saying real person, that is, Dehi, cannot be killed, and you do not kill. Usually, the scriptural teaching would tell the student that ignorance is the cause of suffering. But in the Gita, what is the first dealt with is not the ignorance as much, but its consequence, which is delusion. The consequence is deluded knowledge or deluded knowing and understanding. That is what is taught first to Arjuna. That shows now we have modicum of knowing along with ignorance. Because of that jnanam, we live our life and do things. So knowing and understanding are employed in life. Without knowing and understanding, we cannot live our life. So, Krishna first points out that the knowing and understanding by which Arjuna is living his life, forming his judgments and opinions, and thinking his thoughts and so on is deluded knowledge. Now the question arises, What is effect of the deluded knowledge? What the deluded knowledge would do. In short, the deluded knowledge would say seeing a white as black and seeing a black as white. The deluded one will notice the white color and say it is black and vice versa. The deluded knowledge with which we are now affected is what is making us feel the world as real and God as unreal. That is the point. The ordinary man thinks that his problem is not having what he wants and thinking that the solution is getting what he wants. According to higher wisdom, man's problem is bondage, and the solution lies in liberation from deluded knowing. That is the highest value of human life. One may question whether there is an immortal Atma apart from the body. The scriptural teachings say that there is a soul or Atma, which is a conscious being or a knower who knows and understands and knows things apart from the known body, and that is Atma. Let me give a question in the form of a Q&A. Question. I feel there is no conscious being apart from the body. The body is the knower and it knows everything. So how do I see that there is an Atman apart from the body? The answer to this is, if the body is the knower, how come it did not know that the body becomes a corpse? Dead body does not know that it is cold. It does not know when it is burnt. When the body is dead, there is no talk of desire and anger, and there is no seeing or hearing. This shows that the knower is not the body. Therefore, there is a knower apart from the body. So then the question is, I think it is because the air goes out of the body that it could not think. Answer to this is, in sleep there is air in the body that is breathing, but the body knows nothing, is it not? So the air is not knowing through the body. Also, the 5 sense organs do not work in sleep. In sleep they do not know. Moreover, the 5 senses do not act together. They only act one at a time. Also, they do not know each other, but the knower knows the activities and everything. So, there is a knower apart from the senses also. Moreover, the inner instruments generally known as the mind is also in the same way do not know each other and do not do the work of the other. They are not one unit, but the conscious being, the knower, is one unit. More so in deep sleep, though it appears that there is no knower, the knower is there because after waking, we say, I slept well. Unless the knower is there, one cannot say, I slept well. So there is a conscious being apart from all the adjuncts. The above argument is roughly the Shaiva Siddhanta argument for Atma and is different from body and all the other adjuncts. They use the name Atma for knower. In truth, every being is an Atma. The Atma cannot be killed, and Atman does not kill. What can be killed is only the physical body. In truth, the root cause of all trouble is ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of one's real self. Because we do not know our true identity, all kinds of misunderstandings or erroneous understanding happens. From that erroneous thinking, actions are in operation. So, it should be natural to teach about ignorance first. But in the Gita, what is first dealt with is not the ignorance as such, but its consequence. What is the consequence? It is the delusion. We are living our lives with deluded knowledge or understanding. Even in our wrong knowing, knowing is employed, but it is deluded knowing. Let me say a short summary of Sri Krishna's teachings from verse 13 to 30, leaving a couple verses regarding Atma Anatma Vivechanam. They will help us see the difference between body and the soul. We, the jivas, the indweller in the body, experience childhood, youth, and old age. The changes belong to the body. When the body decays, the individual is hooked to another body to learn and evolve until one obtains self-realization. Senses in conjunction with the sense objects creates emotions, and we, the deluded souls, feel all sorts of duality like hot and cold, pain and pleasure, and so on in us. One should bear them because that's what comes and also goes. They are not permanent. The real has no existence. The real never ceases to be. That which pervades everything is eternal. Eternal can never be destroyed. The body has an end, but the indweller of the body is eternal, indestructible, and immeasurable. Therefore, one should live one's life without fear. He who thinks that Atman kills and can be killed is ignorant. Atman neither kills nor will be killed. Due to our ignorance to our true identity and the subsequent delusion to our earthly life, we think when the body dies, we die. This experience will only leave us when we attain self-realization while we are alive in the body. Until then, we will be given another new body to work out our liberation. When the garment is worn out, we discard it and wear a new one. Similarly, when the body decays and dies, God's law will spin a new body and will conjoin us with it. We think our life ends with this physical body. No. The bundle of thoughts that we have acquired in this life and many past lives also have to be worked out. Till we realize our true identity while living, we will be conjoined with a new body to continue our life. So we should understand that acquiring a new body will only stop when we realize our true identity while living. The purpose of life is to realize our true identity as offspring of God, a conscious being. Offspring of God, soul, Atma, Ishvara Putra, conscious being, Chetan, are all equivalent. Atman is not born, nor does it die. Birth and death are not pertain to it. Atman is unborn, eternal, constant, and ancient. It is not killed when the body is killed. Atman cannot be cleaved by weapons, cannot be burnt by the fire. The water cannot drench it, nor wind dry it. It is eternal, bliss, and all-pervading. Thus, Sri Krishna explains the Atma and Atma Vivechanam to Arjuna, and through him to all human beings. Swami Ramaji says no one is what he or she appears to be. There are no mortal beings. No being is born. No being dies. Being is not born, not dies. The adjunct, roughly body and mind, are born. They decay and die. The conjunction of an Atma with a new adjunct is birth. This disjunction of an Ishvara Putra from the adjunct is death. Adjuncts consist of a set of attributes. Attributes pertain to Prakriti. But the one who has attributes is ego. Ego is not a being. The individual, ignorant of one's true being and deluded by one's earthly life and thinks, I am a person. The deluded soul, or Ishvara Putra, is the sufferer. He suffers and enjoys illusionary satisfactions. Ishvara Putra, in his deluded condition, has desires and suffers. No desires or no suffering can touch Ishvara Putra. Advice to the sadhakas. One should wake up to the truth about oneself as offspring of God or Putra, and not the body-mind complex. So, one should learn to be without any thoughts for as long as possible, remembering one's true selfhood. Then the delusion will start decreasing. The practice of true knowing, avoiding unwholesome deeds and thoughts, will take one to liberation. Let us try to be without thoughts for a few minutes now and then, to be remembered and cherished. All are offspring of God, resembling and belonging to God. Deluded knowing is the problem, and the non-dual oneness is solution. The topic, Atma Anatma Vivechanam, is completed. The next topic is knower and known discrimination.
Kshetrajna Vibhagam. Knower, known, discrimination. The Kshetra and Kshetrajna discrimination is another way of understanding oneself as imperishable and not the body, which is perishable. The knower cannot be the known is the logic behind the essence of this teaching. In the chapter 13 of Bhagavat Gita, Sri Krishna speaks about Kshetra and Kshetrajna Vibhaga, or the known and the knower discrimination. Sri Krishna says that in every Kshetra there is a Kshetrajna. It means in every body, Shariram, there is a knower of the body behind it. Kshetrajna means the knower of the field. Kshetra and Kshetra means the field, and in our context it refers to our body. Sri Krishna then says that he is the Kshetrajna, the great undeluded knower in all the Kshetras bodies. Individual, soul, Purusha, Ishvaraputra, offspring of God, Chitabhasan, Chetanan, Atma, Jivatma, conscious being are all synonyms. Similarly, God, Purushottama, Adi Purusha, Ishvara, Chit, consciousness, Paramatma, Divine Father, Paramapita, Ishvara are synonymous. We have seen before that Sri Krishna made Arjuna understand in his very first Upadesha in the second chapter of Gita the difference between the body Deham, which is perishable, and the indweller of the body Dehi, who is eternal Atman. Now, in the very beginning of the 13th chapter, he teaches the same discrimination, Vivechanam, using the concept Kshetra and Kshetrajna Vivechanam, the field and the knower of the field. I have already said that in our context, they are body and the knower of the body. Swami Remaji would say, when one understands that one is the knower of the body, one should also remember that one is the knower of what all one sees or knows in front of him. One is not the known objects. One is the knower of the objects, whatever it may be, the world, the body, the speech, the thoughts, the feelings, the experiences, the pain, the pleasures, and even one's ego. They are all the products of Prakriti, and one is deluded conscious being connected to them by God for one's good. Not only the objects of senses and thoughts, but one is the knower of one's dreams and also one's deep sleep state. We are not a product of Prakriti. We are conscious being, but now a deluded conscious being. Due to delusion, we see the subject object not as really real, as it is, and thereby suffers the dualities. But through our life, God is evolving us and removing our delusion and ignorance. Swami Remaji would say that we should understand this and consciously cooperate with God for Him to hasten our liberation from I am the body notion. God is also the knower, but great knower. He knows the objects without delusion and also knows them as His play. Moreover, He is also a witness of His play. He is Kridi and Sakshi. Sri Krishna says He is the great knower of all the bodies. He says in the second verse of the same 13th chapter that he believes that there is no higher wisdom in this world than the knower known discriminative knowledge. In the next couple of verses, he expresses his regard for tradition and conveys his respects to the seers who had obtained the wisdom of known and the knower. From verses 1 to 18 of this chapter, Sri Krishna teaches about the knower known discriminative wisdom and the knowledge and qualifications that one needs to obtain it. The entire teaching can be grouped like this: 1 and 2, 5 to 7, 8 to 12, 13 to 17. The 18th verse describes the fruit of the sadhana. In the first few verses of this chapter, Sri Krishna introduces the words Kshetra and Kshetrajna. It goes like this: Arjuna asks him to explain Prakriti and Purusha, or Kshetra and Kshetrajna wisdom. And Sri Krishna replies, Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetram Ityavidiyate. Sri Krishna said that the body is the Kshetra, the known, and the knower of the body is Kshetrajna. Moreover, he said that he is the Kshetrajna, knower in all bodies. This is the greatest of all wisdom. There is no greater wisdom than the knower known discrimination, says Krishna. If we consider the first couple of verses as group 1, the second group consists of verses 5, 6 and 7. Here Sri Krishna speaks about the modification of Prakriti and also speaks about the bad and good qualities of the mind in general. Sri Krishna refers to the Jiva, the existential self, as Sanghata Chetana, which means that the Jiva is an aggregate of body and senses. Regarding the bad qualities of mind, Sri Krishna says, Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Madha, Matsaryam are the lower enemies. They are called in English desire, anger, delusion, stinginess, ego and jealousy. These are the bad qualities of the mind. They should be removed from one's mind. The practices of sense controlling and other sadhanas that we have discussed so far would help one to conquer the lower tendencies. The good qualities are humility, non-pretension, not harming others, rendering service to elders, guru and worthy people, purity, unwavering mind and self-control. A good and bad lower qualities of the mind is due to the deluded choices that one has made and is making using one's modicum of freedom that one's Divine Father Ishvara, God, has gifted to one, says Swami Remaji. The third group consists of the verses 8 to 12. Sri Krishna speaks about the higher qualities of the mind that help one to know Brahman. He calls those higher qualities as jnanam. This is for mumukshus, those who are very serious about liberation, and not for samsaris, those who are not that serious about liberation. My guru used to tell a joke and laugh heartily, which I think I can say here. A preacher was preaching for half an hour about the glories of heaven to the devotees, and at the end asked the gathering, now tell me, who all want to go to heaven? By raising your hands. All of them raised their hands except one. The preacher was surprised and asked him, Don't you want to go to heaven? The man replied, yes, but not so immediately, sir. The higher qualities are dispassion towards objects of senses, absence of egoism, perception of evil in the birth, death, old age, sickness and pains, unattachment, non-identification with son's wife, home, equanimity in likes and dislikes, and in the occurrences of desirable and undesirable situation. Unswerving devotion to Krishna alone, desiring to be in solitude, in a calm and quiet place, avoiding gatherings, not desiring to be in the midst of people, is what is wanted. Steadfast endeavor to realize the self, discriminative mind regarding Atma, Anatma, the real and the unreal, all these qualities are called jnanam. All other knowledge are ignorance. The Upanishads address Brahman as jnanam. The quote is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. But here Sri Krishna calls the higher qualities that will take one to Brahman as jnana. One should be aware of this. The last group is formed of verses 13 to 17. Here Sri Krishna describes Brahman, that which has to be known. He says to Arjuna that he would describe Brahman which has to be known, and starts his description by saying like this, with feet and hands everywhere, Sarvataha Pani Padam, with heads, eyes and mouth everywhere, and so on. But Brahman cannot be known as an object. It could only be felt. Similarly, our true identity cannot be known as an object, but we can experience or be that. Here Sri Krishna describes Brahman. So, in the context, we should take the word Brahman as Saguna Brahman because the Nirguna Brahman is subject-objectless consciousness. Now, let us see how Sri Krishna is describing Brahman. With feet and hands everywhere, with heads and eyes and mouth everywhere, shining through the functions of bodily movements and the activities of senses, supporting everything without attachment, absolute, devoid of gunas, moving and unmoving, whole, but also appears as parts, creating, sustaining and devouring, beyond darkness and giving light to the lights, the goal of knowledge and the one thing to be known. Such an unthinkable great one is residing in everybody's heart, Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam, as Antaryami. Actually, if we keenly look at the description that Sri Krishna describes about the world as Brahman, I think is what Swami Remaji describes as God's impersonational sport. He says, wearing Prakriti as his covering or mask, Ishvara is playing his Leela. Sri Krishna says, God has feet and hands everywhere, with eyes, ears, mouth connected to the head. It means each living body is God's covering mask, wearing which he plays. The world, with all the living beings and also non-living things, are God's covering mask. This makes us understand that God's form is the world, but the world is not God's Swarupa. Brahman is God's Swarupa, his true self. God functions through the masks, but he is not moving along with the mask. His play moves, not he. He witnesses the moves unmovingly, but the witness is not just stillness, it is love and power. God is Ramana. Ramana means the one who is immersed in the bliss of his own play. In support of this truth, there is a verse, Ulagame Uruvamam, in the book named Siva Jnana Siddhiyar of Saiva Siddhanta. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Ajayamano Bahuda Vijayate, the unborn becomes many. The Svetaswara Upanishad says, Tvam Stris, Tvam Puman Asi, Tvam Kumara Athava Kumari. That one God has become all that we know. The young, old, women and men, the youth and children, the animal and so on. This truth makes us understand that one God wearing Prakriti as his mask becomes everything, in other words, has created the world and maintaining the world. This makes us understand that everything belongs to God. At the end, Sri Krishna says, the Kshetra-Kshetrajna discrimination, sadhana, can be done by anybody, even by those who do not have bhakti devotion to Ishvara, but possesses sharp scientific mind. But their knowledge will not yield fruit. It will be only an information in their minds. It is because without devotion, one cannot know Brahman. To know Brahman, one should have immense devotion to God, Krishna, Ishvara. Then only he will reveal himself, or Brahman will be revealed. So, devotion to God is very important to obtain the result in sadhana. Here, Krishna talks about himself as both Brahman and Ishvara, the shower of the Brahman. A very short revision. To experience one's true identity, one should first cultivate desirable good qualities and discard the undesirable bad qualities in one's mind. After having sufficiently conquered one's senses, one should cultivate high qualities that will be helpful for knowing Brahman. Brahman is to be known through jnana, through those higher qualities. In the verse 18, Iti Chetram Tatha Jnanam Nyayam Choktam Samasataha. Sri Krishna tells Arjuna, I have told you what all qualities a sadhaka should relinquish, what all attributes he should cultivate to attain Brahman, and what is Brahma Swarupa. As it has been said earlier, anyone can do sadhana irrespective of whether one is ordinary person or endowed with high sharp intellect like scientists. But unless one has the devotion to God, I must know him fully, whom I love so much, and do the sadhana, one will not obtain Brahman or obtain the likeness of Ishvara. God has center everywhere and circumference nowhere, immeasurable because he is all pervading, sarva-vyapi. He is unmovable and movable. He cannot be seen as an object. He is undivided, avibhaktam, yet he seems to be divided. He is to be known as the supporter of beings. He devours and generates, says Krishna. A revision. Sri Krishna has taught Arjuna 1. The distinction between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, known and the knower of the known. 2. What all qualities a sadhaka should relinquish. 3. What all attributes a sadhaka should cultivate to attain Brahman. 4. What is Brahma Swarupa? Sri Krishna concludes the teaching of the knower-known discrimination in the 18th verse, saying that he has briefly stated the knower wisdom, and knowing this, his true devotees will be qualified to obtain his state, says Sri Krishna. A point to be understood and cherished. The body is known and I am the knower of it. Behind my knowing consciousness, God is. Knowing all the bodies, I must know Him. The topic Kshetra Kshetrajna is completed. The next topic is Sthita Prajnan.